it for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Playing on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
all in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Playing on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. With Tony Marinaro.
55 seconds left in the penalty, a minute and 27 seconds left in regulation time. Boston 4, Montreal 3. Lafleur coming out rather gingerly on the right side. He gives it into Lemaire, back to Lafleur. Oh!
The sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast.
You're in the ball!
Sports entertainment like no other.
Rejoint, on lui fait perdre la rondelle, une passe devant. Et c'est le dégagement, et ce sera la victoire des Canadiens. Stanley pour les Canadiens, leur 23e de l'histoire.
You found the dogs! John, you found the dogs! He found the dogs! And all together, they worked a young team to the top. And now, a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup!
Brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Driven to be different. La Vida TV. Embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination. It's gonna be sick.
It is sick. It is Friday. Welcome to your long weekend. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Energy Transportation Group is a leading full-service logistics provider serving all of North America, driven to be different. You haven't really played poker until you've played at Playground. Voted the fan choice best poker room at the 2025 Global Poker Awards. Enjoy free drinks at every table, free food at all cash games, and daily tournaments, plus the biggest events in the game like the World Poker Tour and WSOP Circuit. And don't miss your shot at the world record Bad Beat Jackpot, now closing in on $1 million. Just minutes away from downtown Montreal, right across the Mercier Bridge. This is Playground. We're also brought to you by Tibi beer. Tibi has launched their new Ultra Lager, a refreshing, thirst-quenching beer perfect for those hot summer days and coming up cold fall days with only 90 calories, 2 grams of carbs, and 4% alcohol per can. Available packs of 6 and 12 in grocery stores and dépanneurs across the province of Quebec. Ultra light and ultra refreshing. And finally, by Betway, go all the way with Betway and get a free bet up to $200 if your first bet loses. Scan the QR code on the screen or click the link in the details section to create an account and redeem your welcome offer. Offer is available only for new customers. Terms and conditions apply. Offer is not available in Ontario. You must be 18 years or older, and please play responsibly. So much like the Canadiens, many of the Canadiens haven't taken days off in the summer. One guy who really hasn't taken a day off this summer is joining me now. He is my usual Friday guest. His name is Stu Cowan of the Montreal Gazette. Stu, how are we doing?
I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm doing fine. No days off for the Montreal Canadiens by choice, just like you by choice. You have been working with us all summer, so we appreciate that. So you had a chance to let's dive into this first because I found this really interesting. You had a chance to catch up with Josh Gorges.
I did. He was recently hired as the assistant coach with the Kelowna Rockets, and I know Josh endeared himself to a lot of Canadiens fans years ago when Marc Bergevin was trading him and wanted to trade him to the Leafs, and he refused to take the Leafs off his no-trade list, saying he could not play for the Leafs after the heated rivalry being on the other side of it with the Canadiens. So it was really great catching up with Josh. He's a smart guy. He likes to talk. He's interesting. I did a column on him. I did a Q&A on him also. And he sounds a lot, listening to his coaching philosophies, he had been working with the BCHL team in Kelowna for the last 5 years, 1 year as a player development coach and 4 years as an assistant coach. By listening to him talk and the way he thinks about the game, reminded me a lot of the way Marty St. thinks about the game and the way this Canadiens management team thinks about the game. Talk about the mental aspect of the game and being able to be consistent and stuff like that. I asked him if he's thought about coaching in the NHL, and he said it's not something he's really thought about, but he wouldn't totally rule it out. But it was also interesting. He said that when he was playing, he had quite a few people tell him that, when you retire, you're going to be a better coach than you were a player. And I said, why would they tell you that? He said, because I was never drafted. I wasn't the biggest guy. He said, I had to work harder than everybody else, and I had to be smarter than everybody else to be able to compete at the NHL level. He talked about how much video he watched and how he learned about different systems and looked for habits that guys he'd be defending against might have, so he'd maybe have an edge on them. So I'm sure he's going to do a fantastic job. He was captain of the Rockets back in his junior days. He won a Memorial Cup with the team. The Memorial Cup, Kelowna's hosting the Cup again this year, so they'll be back there. So he said it'd be, after winning it as a player, he said it would be very cool to win it again as a coach. And his two boys, who he has also coached, similar to Marty St. Louis also, right? They're 11-9, and he was saying how cool it'll be to have them hang around a junior rink. And he said the passion he had for coaching these young kids was even more so than he had as a player. He absolutely loved it. And that reminds me of Marty St. Louis also. Remember, he talked about how much he loved coaching his sons and coaching younger players. So for Josh Gorges, I think if he really wants to become an NHL coach in the future, I can definitely see that happening. He talked about the time commitment. His boys are young. That's one of the reasons Marty St. Louis held off becoming a coach. He wanted his kids to be grown up and in university and out of the house before he took a job. But for Josh Gorges, a 20-minute conversation with him, and I could have spoken to him for an hour. He's just a really bright guy, intelligent guy, and a lot of fun to talk hockey with.
And I remember from way back when he used to play, the one thing he was praised the most of, which, as I learned more about hockey, at first I didn't think it was such a skill. It was more of a mindset and, kind of in certain ways, a sickness of blocking shots. Yeah. I mean, oh my God, this guy was a magnet for pucks that they weren't getting through no matter who was taking the shot. And, that's one of the things he probably knew that was his value, was that, okay, I don't have the best puck skills. I'm more of a stay-at-home guy. Nothing is getting through when I'm on the ice.
And he's also fearless when he went in the corner in his own end to get the pucks. And he used to get rocked all the time. He was a fearless player. And he said the other interesting thing he said is one of his teammates who told him he'd be a better coach than a player, and he wouldn't tell me who the teammate was. He said it was because he was never afraid to speak up in the locker room. And he said it was just part of his personality. He said if things weren't going well, so I'd stand up and say, guys, this isn't acceptable. We got to do better than this. He said, I was never afraid to voice my opinion and my honest feelings. And he said, I asked him also, the decision not to go to the Leafs, if he had any regrets. And he sort of said, well, that's a bit of a loaded question, but he said he wouldn't change it if he could go back. Even though he went to Buffalo, he played 4 years there. They were horrible, never made the playoffs, finished last 1 year. But he says, if I had to make the decision again, I'd do the same decision because I made it from my heart. And that's the way he played the game. He was a heart and soul player. He gave you everything he had. And he was really hurt when Marc Bergevin traded him. But in hindsight, looking back, he says, I understand GMs have to, hockey's all about winning. It's not about friendships or loyalty or anything like that. It's about winning. And GMs have to move players because of contracts, because other players are coming up. He said, I understand that now. He said, I didn't understand that back then. And he was really hurt when the Canadiens traded. And, there's quite a few players the Canadiens have traded over the years who loved playing in Montreal, right? And PK Subban won. You can go down. There's others also. But Josh Gorges, he loved being a Canadian. And he said, I'll always be a Canadian. He said, when people ask me about my career, so I'm a Montreal Canadian, so I cheer for them. It was also interesting talking to him about how Brendan Gallagher, if you remember, lived with Josh Gorges and his wife Maggie for the first 2 years of his career. And Josh said, you remember when Gally came into training camp the first time as an 18-year-old, he was from out west, like Josh Gorges is from Kelowna. And he said, I tried to make all the young guys feel comfortable, but especially the guys from out west. He said, Gallagher and I sort of hit it off right away. And then when he did make the team, and Michel Therrien had a meeting with team leaders saying, Galchenyuk made the team at the same time, saying, it might be a good idea to have these two guys live with veterans, with everything that comes around with playing in Montreal. And Gorges right away said, well, I got Gally. And then he had to go home and tell his wife. It was like, what? We're having this guy live with us? Some kid that I don't know? But Gorges also said that they look back and he says, my wife and I look at that as 2 of the best years of our lives having him live with us. He's part of the family. And he said, my wife probably texts and talks with Gallagher more than I do. He said they really became close friends. So he played a big role in Brendan Gallagher becoming the player and the person he is today. He said Gallagher was like me. He said, like me when I was 20, mature, immature, green around the edges. And he said it was a really smart idea for the Canadiens to have him live with Brendan Gallagher rather than live with Josh Gorges rather than just letting a young kid loose in Montreal coming from out west.
Oh, well, that could go sideways
yes.
very easily.
With Carey Price early in his career, right? It went sort of sideways with him being left alone, kid coming from out west and bright lights, big city. It's a tough adjustment for anyone. And the other thing yesterday was Lane Hutson in Brossard for his charity event. And here's a kid who's handled the spotlight in Montreal spectacularly on and off the ice. And he lived with his mom last season. Mm-hmm. I asked him if she's going to be living with him again this year. And he said, well, I told her she could. But he said, my brothers are out of the house now. So he said that she'll probably be bouncing around visiting all of us. But he said the door's open if she wants to live with me again this year.
Brendan Gallagher, Josh Gorges, Lane Hutson, the common denominator is that they're just made of the right stuff. They understand, that every day is a great day when you're playing hockey and you're on the ice, and that how lucky they were to play in this market. I mean, that was the thing in your other story that you wrote. It was one of the better quotes was from Lane Hutson, was that he appreciates that the fans love hockey as much as he does. And you'd be hard pressed to find anyone who doesn't love hockey as much as Lane Hutson. Maybe, just maybe it would be Brendan Gallagher.
Yeah, I mean, Lane's quote yesterday said, just ask about the pressure in Montreal. He said, I just feel fortunate that people care this much about our team and what we have here. Just kind of realize how fortunate we are and just be yourself. He says, I get to do what I love, and I'm very fortunate that I get to do it. I'm just excited for the season to get going. So I think the key is, he said, just be yourself. And he said he's learned that from Nick Suzuki and Cole Caulfield and the way they've handled the spotlight and the pressure in Montreal and thrived under it. And he said one thing, that they're just themselves, and that's Lane Hutson's just himself. He'd rather be at the arena than anywhere else. I asked him what the highlight of his summer was, and he said it was helping his dad coach a peewee team in a tournament in Montreal. The kid just he can't get enough hockey. It's it really is something. It's refreshing. His exact quote was, he says, any day you get to be on the ice, it's a good day. So Lane, and he believes that. Like, he was, when he was doing the interview with the media, the scrum, David Reinbacher and Ivan Demonov were on the ice, and he was saying, I wish I could be out there with them. That looked so much fun. You can't get enough. You can't get enough hockey. It's great. He's got a passion for it, and so did Josh Gorges, and so did Brendan Gallagher. And they also had a passion for playing in Montreal.
Well, I think you have to have a passion for the game to play in the NHL, but you really have to love it to thrive in Montreal, because it'll just eat you alive. Because if you don't have the mentality that Lane Hutson has, because let's face it, Lane Hutson, how much better could it have gone last year for him? Yeah. So when things, he'll hit a rut at some point in the coming season, in his career. At some point, it's going to happen, and to be able to look at it through the lens that he does, that's what's going to carry you through that rut. Because if you don't have that level of passion that the fans share, which is what they appreciate so much, beyond the electrifying aspects of his game, I'm talking about Lane Hutson. It's just, the city will just eat you alive. Like we say every year or every week, it's the best place to play when things are going well, but it's the worst place in the universe to play when it's not. Worse so that, I don't care what anyone says, worse so than Toronto, worse so than New York, worse so than Boston, big time. It doesn't even compare. So that's something that Lane Hutson, he'll probably be a future leader of this team, and a lot more players that the Canadiens look to acquire or develop. It's a trait they're going to have to develop.
Well, the other thing Josh Gorges said that was interesting, he said, especially for a guy who wasn't drafted, he said, that just gave him more motivation. He was really pissed off at first, and then it's okay, then I'll just have to do it the hard way. But he also said, it's really hard to play one game in the NHL. It's even harder, he said, to stay there. And he said that's one of the things, the thing he's most proud of is that he was able to play as long as he did in the NHL. And he talked about, looking back, he says, you can read the Q&A in the column on my on Hockey Inside Out website for people who haven't seen it yet. And he said, when he looks back on his career, it's not the wins and losses that he remembers as much as it is the relationships he built, and the plane rides and the bus rides. And for him, like when he finished hockey, he said he didn't really have a plan for after hockey. So it was a little bit difficult for him. And he was happy when the opportunity came to coach his kids and do other stuff to stay involved in the game. And, asking him, I asked him, I said, what are you most proud about your career? And he sort of went, oh boy. And then he thought about it for a bit. And he said, I always tell people how hard it is to get a game in the NHL. It's hard, but I say it's hard to stay there because every year there's another crop of 18-year-olds that get drafted and signed that are trying to do the same thing you did. So that moment that you lose that hunger, that drive, that expectation to be at the absolute best, your career is probably over. So that's great advice for young guys coming up or anybody in the NHL. Yoel Armia learned that lesson the hard way, right? Look at Yoel Armia and how frustrating it was to watch, and the Canadiens had seen enough, and they sent them down to Laval. And boy, did that light something under him, realizing that, man, this could be over. I might not be playing in the NHL anymore. And he really picked up his game after that moving forward. So that's another reason why I think Josh Gorges will be a really good coach at the junior level. And as I said, the way he looks at the game and development and that is very similar to the way Canadiens management team and Marty St. Louis look at the game.
Well, it's funny because I was even just thinking if someone is watching this or listening to this in the background and they didn't really catch who we were talking about at the beginning, they'd think you were talking about Marty St. Louis.
Yeah, it is. I mean, that's what listening to said 20 minutes on the phone with them, and it was very much like motivate. Like Marty St. Louis is an incredible motivational speaker. I mean, I don't know. You watch that Crave series, the first 3 episodes, a speech he made in episode 3 before the game in Florida last year with Jacob Dobish making his first NHL start. I mean, he was saying, if you're just going to go tip your toe in the water off the dock, you're not going to play. I want you to do a cannonball. Get in, and we got to take and the Canadiens went on and won that game, right? And Dobish got a shutout in his first. So he has that motivational ability. I think Gorges has the same as that Marty St. Louis has. And he also has the ability. I mean, Marty, when he first took the job, he said his biggest strength is that he'll be able to relate to every single player on the team because he was never drafted. He was put on waivers. He cleared waivers. He was a fourth liner. He was a first liner. He was a star. I mean, Josh Gorges was never a star, but he had to making the odds were definitely stacked against him to play in the NHL, and he beat those odds. So for young kids coming up, and Hayden Papanakis is playing for the Rockets, right? The Canadiens' third-round pick this year, the big center that they drafted. And I asked Gorges about him, and he said he's heard people start talking. You know, he has friends around Kelowna. He said he didn't see a lot of the Rocket games last year because he was coaching the BCHL team. But he said he's had people in Kelowna start talking to him about Papanakis, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right, and other players with the Rockets, and he tells them, "I'll stop. I don't want to hear it. I want to make my own impressions on all these players. I don't want to be anything based on what you told me or somebody else told me." And that's Marty St. Louis said basically the same thing when he came in, right? He said, "I'm going to make my own impressions on these guys." So yeah, a lot of similarities in how they got to the NHL. Marty obviously had more success than Josh Gorges once he got there, but boy, Josh Gorges was a heart and soul hockey player, and you know he'd give everything he had for the team, and it's nice hearing him talk about how much the Canadiens in Montreal still mean to him after all these years. And he's rooting for the team. He's still, you know, I asked Gorges also for his thoughts about Marty St. Louis as a head coach. And he said, well, he says, I'm quite fortunate because Shea Weber, Carey Price, and Brendan Gallagher are among my best friends. And I've asked all of them about Marty St. Louis, and they all have nothing but great things to say. And they talk about how he understands. He's a player's coach. He understands what it's like to be a player. He understands the highs. He understands the lows. He understands everything. You compare that to like when Wayne Gretzky was trying to coach in the NHL with the Coyotes, and he wasn't very successful. I don't know if Wayne Gretzky could understand, you know, the Michael Pizzettas of the world, right? The guys who are struggling and fighting just to get into the NHL. Marty can understand all these guys, and I think that's really, really one of the big reasons why he's had success coaching the NHL. His communication abilities, his motivational abilities, and from talking with Josh Gorges, a lot of times I talked about just hearing him speak, he has all those qualities also.
Well, you know, that's the main thing, I think, with Martin St. Louis. You hit the nail on the head, which is the communication skills in him being a successful coach. You know, this is just in contrast to a player like Wayne Gretzky, because any player, when you reach the level of talent that a Wayne Gretzky has, that a Martin St. Louis had, or, you know, you look at any of the top guys, a Ron Francis, who's now an executive in the NHL, you see the game a certain way, and you're obviously doing something right. So the biggest thing is being able to communicate the way you see the game. Yeah. And I think we finally saw that all come together last year once the Canadiens went on that amazing run towards the playoffs, because, you know, at points in the middle of the season, it wasn't so much that the message was getting dry, because we knew that the Canadiens liked playing for Martin St. Louis, but it wasn't working. The Canadiens looked like they were running around in their own end with chickens with their heads cut off, and they were only able to create off the rush. And then we saw it all come together. So the communication aspect, because we've heard so much about how much of a complex system. We hear it in the series that some of the coaches.
Kerry talks about that when he first came in, and you know,
there's so much information.
Exactly. The defensive zone system they had, and he said it was hard for him at first. You know, he was at the back of the line in all the drills because he didn't want to screw up. But yeah, Marty, I mean, the way he's coached this team and the way he's handled the players. As I said, Josh Gorges talking with Gallagher and the other guys have nothing but good things to say about Marty St. Louis.
So let's move to towards Lane Hutson now. what more good things can we say about the guy? You know what I would love to see? I want to see. Now, this is the perfect season because last year when they made the playoffs, yes, of course, you're disappointed that you got eliminated in 5 games, but the season went beyond expectations. Mm-hmm. Now that the expectations are big, I want to see what it's like when, a player like Lane Hutson, of his passion for the game, I want to see how badly he hates to lose because he's kind of a happy-go-lucky kid, always kind of smiling whenever we see him in the media. I want to see what it's like when they suffer, a 5-4 loss in the last minute of regulation, and they knew that they let that one slip. I want to see what it's like when they lose that type of game because usually Martin St. Louis will be the one that'll be taking the brunt of everything, and he'll be. We know how much he hates to lose, but right. I want to see how much his players are similar to him in that respect.
Yeah, I mean, nobody hates to lose more than Marty St. Louis, right? And that's why the first 3 years of this rebuild it was all about teaching, right? So he had to tone that down, right? He had to realize that he's gotten, leash has gotten tighter on guys each year. But Lane Hutson said a good thing yesterday too. He said, we made the playoffs. We only played 5 games. He said, but for a month before the playoffs, we were playing playoff games, and they were. He said, we had a month of playoffs before we got to the playoffs. He says every game was just so important for them to get in the playoffs. And he said, that's something, he said, looking at his teammates skating this summer, he says, there's a hunger in everybody's eyes. And everybody's excited for this season to start. They can't wait. Ivan Demidov has been on the ice, I think, every day this summer, twice a day, a lot of days. I believe he was on the ice twice yesterday. He's just, another guy like Lane Hutson. He loves hockey. He can't get enough of it. It's nice to watch, and it was interesting too when, as I said, Lane was sort of watching Demidov on the ice. With Reinbacher, and he was asked about Demidov, and his quote was, "We all see how hard he works, and you can see the kid he is and what he does every day. It's pretty special. He's got a work ethic, and you want to surround yourself with guys like that. Being able to be around him for a few weeks during the summer now, it's really been good for me." And then he was asked what part of Demidov's game stands out the most. And Hutson said, "I think it's just an ingrained hockey brain that he has. His intelligence on the ice, it's pretty special, and it's rare to see it as a younger guy coming into the league. Watching what he's able to do with the watching what he's able to do with the puck and the plays he sees that a lot of guys maybe miss, it's really cool." And we're talking about Marty St. Louis being able to relate to all these players. Marty St. Louis sees the game at a different level, right? Mm-hmm. He always has. And he's been able to use that ability to help other guys who see the game at a different level. Nick Suzuki, Cole Caulfield, Lane Hutson at the top of that list, right? Guys with that special ability. Ivan Demidov has that ability. So Marty's able to speak to them on their level, right? Or even a level above and teach them. But he's also able to understand that not everybody sees the game the way he does or has the ability to see the game the way he does. And that's, look at last year with Dvorak and Anderson and Gallagher as a line. It was one of the most effective lines. And Marty basically let them play within his concepts, but they're sort of older school type of game, right? Dump it in, forecheck hard, get the puck, go to the net. And I think that's why I think on a previous episode I was saying with you, I'd like to see Jake Evans replace Dvorak on that line this year and just leave those guys together. Let them do their thing. Those 3 guys, nobody makes it to the NHL without being incredibly skilled, but they don't have the skill level or the ability to see the game like a Lane Hutson or a Suzuki. So Marty can understand these guys. So he's coaching guys a little bit different, right? I remember Caden Gooley last year when he was asking about, Marty St. Louis and Lane Hutson talking hockey. And he says, I overhear them sometimes. I have no idea what they're talking about. It's like a different language. So Marty's one of his strongest abilities is to realize how every player is different, emotionally, physically, how they see the game, and able to find what their strengths are and then build off of those.
Well, that's one thing about those guys you mentioned, Jake Evans, Brendan Gallagher, Josh Anderson, and there are others on the team, but those guys specifically, is that what they have, you can't teach. They have just a sense of hustle and work ethic that it's you either have it or you don't. Yeah. And they have it in spades. Yeah.
So, and as I said, though, for Slavkovsky needs to watch Josh Anderson. Yeah. Slavkovsky has more skill than Josh Anderson, but use that physical ability. Use it on a daily basis. Talk about building off of strengths. And episode 3 of that Crave series, they had a good part on the Laval Rocket also. And Pascal Vincent talking about, developing players in the AHL. And he said the key is to find their strength. What are they really good at? And you focus on that, and then you build off of that. So for some guys, it might be their skating, right? For some guys, it might be their playmaking. For some guys, it might be their physicality. So figure out what their biggest strength is, harness that, and then build off of that. So if skating is a guy's game, you work on his skating, and then, okay, now add a little bit of physicality. Now add a little bit of this. So listen to Pascal Vincent and the times I've interviewed, another just – Canadiens have a lot of smart people in this organization, a lot of really smart, not just hockey mind smart, but people skills smart, teaching smart. I mean, Adam Nicholas, we're talking, nobody has been on the ice this summer more than Adam Nicholas. The Canadiens.
And that's saying a lot, considering there was
on with every single guy. He was on yesterday afternoon with Reinbacher and Demidov. Every time I've gone to Brossard, he's on the ice with the guys. Talk about guys who love their job. Nobody loves their job more than Adam Nicholas, and he's really been a key part of this rebuild. As the director of hockey, the players love him. Another scene in the Crave series, they call him Big Cat. And I remember asking, I think it was maybe Jonathan Kovacevic a couple of years ago, who gave him that nickname? And he laughed, says, I think he gave it to himself. But he's unfortunately, we don't get to talk with him very much. I'd love to sit down with Adam Nicholas for half an hour and just talk with him, because he also thinks the game. I remember the one press conference they did when they hired him. He got asked one question and his answer was like 4 minutes. He's got so much passion for the game, and the players really like him. Uri Slavkovsky did an interview with Anthony Martineau of TVA Sports back home, a Zoom interview, I guess. And he was saying that Nicholas keeps sending him videos all the time, like what to do in certain situations where he has the puck. So I think Adam Nicholas, like Marty St, eats, sleeps, breathes hockey, like Lane Hutson. Like there's so many. Ken Hughes is like that. They're just, these guys all have a passion for hockey, and they have just a lot of smart people in this organization now, and we're seeing the results.
And it just builds off of making that healthy culture again, because when you have that many guys who are just in love with the game like that, and it just, when you get a player like a Lane Hutson who comes into that kind of dressing room, I'm just using Lane Hutson because we were talking about him before, is when he comes into the dressing room for the first time, he's going to feel right at home, because this guy's in love with the game and it goes top down. Another thing is an article or a sit down interview with Adam Nicholas. There isn't a place on earth where that wouldn't do better than here. Like, imagine Adam Nicholas was, in the same role for, I don't know, let's say the Dallas Stars, talented hockey team, great team. The market, it's not so strong until the playoffs roll around. Yeah. So imagine that.
Wouldn't even know who it is. Yeah.
Exactly. That article.
Pierre Gervais wrote a book. The trainer of the Canadiens wrote a book. How many trainers of any other team write a book that people actually would care about, right? It just shows you the passion for hockey in this market. But I mean, the other thing, we spoke about this before in previous episodes, is one of the biggest things that Ken Hughes and Jeff Gorton and Marty St have been able to do is make Montreal a place where guys want to play. And these young guys, despite all the spotlight and the pressure and everything else, they really seem to be enjoying it, including Lane Hutson. And I know Mitch Marner did an interview this week talking about getting out of Toronto and going to Vegas and how much he's looking forward to it now, just with his wife and kid, to be able to go out and not be bothered anywhere, and talking about, after the lease were limited in the playoffs, he'd have to have security at his house for like a week afterwards to make sure nobody was trying to get in his house and stuff like that. There's no doubt it's not easy to play in any Canadian market, especially Montreal and Toronto. The scrutiny, I mean, asking Lane Hutson, can he go? I asked him yesterday, can he go anywhere and not get recognized? And he said, well, I really don't go out much. I basically go home and I go to the rink. But he said, as we mentioned earlier, the quote, the passion of it. But it can be hard, and I'm sure it is hard for these guys at times. Sometimes you just want to go out with your wife or your buddies for a quiet dinner somewhere and not be bothered. They really can't do that anywhere here in Montreal unless they get a private room. But they seem to be feeding off it, and they seem to be enjoying what comes with playing in Montreal. And the older guys, I remember, I might have told you the story before, I remember sitting with Yvon Cornway at, I think it was a Quebec Sports Hall of Fame golf tournament one year. So going back maybe 10, 15 years. And during dinner, he was interrupted, I don't know how many times, by people wanting a picture or an autograph or something like that. And at one point I said to him, Yvon, does this ever bother you? Does it ever get on your nerves? And he says, what's going to bother me? When nobody wants my autograph anymore. and nobody cares. And what a great answer, right? And it's just it's a privilege to play for the Montreal Canadiens. The other thing Josh Gorges said, he talked about, I asked what his favorite memories with the Canadian, or what was his highlight, and he said there's a couple. And he said the first one was the first time he put on the sweater. And he says, I put it on, and he said it just felt different. He said, I don't know why, but I was in the locker room, and he said it was just a different feeling putting on a Montreal Canadiens sweater. He says, I can't put my finger on it. He says, it was just different. And then the other one he said, excuse me, was his first playoff game at the Bell Center. And he said, you hear about it and people talk about it, but until you've experienced it, until you come out of the locker room, you walk down the corridor and you see the towels waving and you hear the fans and the roar when you get on the ices, until you experience, you have no idea what it's like. And these young Canadiens players got a chance to experience that last year. Well, and I think that's going to go a long way this season. They want to experience that again. Montreal in the springtime in the playoffs is amazing. And unfortunately, when the Canadiens went to the Cup final in 2021, it was COVID. And there wasn't that experience in the arena, or outside. I mean, it was outside after they remember that. But they got a taste of what it's like to be in this city in the playoffs, and it's really special, and they really want to get back there again.
Yeah, and it's something you almost forget about, we did forget about, because it was one of those things where I was kind of getting annoyed hearing other players from other teams saying they love playing in Montreal on a Saturday night. I want them to hate it. I wanted them to hate it. And there's a famous podcast clip that made its way around. I think it was a Barstool podcast, not Spittin' Chicklets though. One of the co-hosts was a Washington Capitals fan, and he traveled to Montreal for Game 3. And he said on the podcast, I have never seen anything like this. Like, all these fans are so he's like, I've never seen a fan base cheer a blocked shot or a dump down the ice like they would cheer for a goal. It was just
I was at the Bell Center for the Four Nations games, the Canada-US one, when they had the 3 fights in the first 9 seconds, and that was wild and crazy. But the playoff games were equal, it was just as loud. I mean, if not even louder. It was. I mean, I remember up in the press box, we're 8 floors up and covering your ears because the sound coming up. It's just, I can't even imagine, as Josh said, I can't even imagine what that must feel like to skate out on the ice and hear that crowd. It's got to. I mean, it's, as Josh Gorges said, it was one of the highlights. The second highlight of his time with the Canadiens after the first time that he got to put on a Canadian sweater.
The thing I appreciate the most about Josh Gorges in that interview, and him saying he doesn't regret not waiving his no trade clause to go to the Leafs, is that still exists amongst the players. Times have changed, and I
mean, you see guys with John Ferguson. If a guy from another team in Montreal would come into the restaurant, he'd get up and leave. I mean, they hated each other. Times have changed in that way. But yeah, it's as you say, for a guy, and he said, I played with so much heart and passion, and he didn't say it, but in words, but I mean, he hated the Leafs, right? Yeah. That rivalry, and he said, if I went there, I wouldn't be able to bring that passion playing for the Leafs that I had for the Canadiens, because there's too many memories about playing against them. And as he said, he went to Buffalo, and the last 4 years of his career, it's not how I wanted to end my career. We were on a horrible team. We finished last. But he says, if I had to make the decision again, I'd make the same decision, which I'm sure will endear him even more to Montreal fans now, especially younger ones who maybe didn't even know that story, that there was a guy on the Canadiens who refused to play for the Leafs.
Well, big time, because, he's a little more skilled, but, you would think that the style of play, if you had to make a comparison, is a Jaden Struble, maybe. Yeah. Similar style of play, big body, not the biggest body, but likes to throw the weight around. Exactly. Not afraid to
fearless. Jaden Struble's tough, fearless. Yeah, that solid physical defenseman who, you think it was funny too, because I was asking him, in his new role, I guess you're just going to be coaching the defenseman. He says, well, in practices and in games, yeah. He says, apart from that, I'm going to be teaching the mental game to the forwards too. And he explained some of his thinking about mental. He says, and he says, the other thing I can tell forwards is what I didn't like as a defenseman. And he says, one thing I didn't like as a defenseman was speed it's so difficult to defend against speed. So I'll be telling my forwards, use your speed, because defensemen don't like defending speed. At least I did. And then he said, and that's probably the extent of my coaching for forwards. I mean, he scored 17 goals in his career, and he sort of laughed. But I mean, that's a good point. Like, if you're a forward and you have a guy who played in the NHL and he's a junior forward and you have speed, and he's telling you that's the thing I hated the most defending in the NHL was against a guy with speed. And look at Connor McDavid. I mean, it's not fun. It's not fun defending against him. All his skills, but his speed is the scariest part.
That guy that could go from 0 to 100 like that will live in defensemen's nightmares.
I remember covering a game in Edmonton, and Ben Sherratt was with the Canadiens. And there was a puck at center ice, sort of a 50-50 if you're going to get it. And he took one stride to go get it. And then he realized, oh, crap, it's McDavid. And he took one step back, and McDavid blew by him and he scored. And in the locker room afterwards, I said to Ben, I said, you're not the first guy that's happened to. I'm not picking on you here, but what's it like when you're in that situation? And he basically said, you just go, oh, shit. You're like, you realize he's got the step on you and you're not going to catch him. You're not. So that's what Josh Gorges' his ability was to play angles and be ready and be prepared. And he watched so much video, as I mentioned earlier, learning how to defend guys like McDavid, who were more skilled, bigger, faster than him. And Josh Gorges did it for his 13 years in the NHL, which for a guy who was never drafted, that's something to hang your hat on.
You know what I would love to see is the reaction of Josh Gorges, because with a player like him, like I said off the top, the one thing that comes to mind instantly when you say Josh Gorges is master shot blocker.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder what the talking to he would give a player, because he strikes me as a similar guy as Marty St. that he's not going to blow up at anyone.
No,
you know, there's too much respect for people to blow up at someone like
that.
I'll
be honest with him, just like Marty St. Louis.
I wonder what his first reaction will be the second he sees, a player at that level flamingo a puck. Just what that would be like.
You just need to find videos of himself blocking shots and say, "Watch this."
Yeah, exactly. The one that really comes to mind. It was a scary moment, but it's just a testament to the fearlessness of Josh Gorges. I think it was definitely against the Capitals. Maybe it was Mike Green who took the shot, and Josh Gorges went down to block it, and it hit him in the back of the head, and there was an imprint of the puck on his helmet.
I remember
and it was a scary, scary moment. Thankfully, everything was okay after, but that was just a testament to the fearlessness of Josh Gorges.
I remember the 93 Stanley Cup run. It might have been in the final against the Kings. So I remember Guy Carbonneau blocking a shot off his head, and he basically dove head first to block it.
Mm-hmm.
That's those are the guys, right? Those guys, you find a bunch of guys who play like that, you're gonna have a winning hockey team.
Well, that's it. You look at the Florida Panthers, and it's worked for them 2 years in a row.
Exactly.
So,
I mean, line after line after line after line, the effort, like it's just like they just wear teams down. And they were talking about that, and I watched episode 3 of that Gray series last night, and Marty saying actually it was Stefan Robida, I think, addressing the players and saying the Panthers, they don't play like they're not like a super fast team. They're patient and they're relentless, right? And they just wait for you to make a mistake and then they capitalize on it.
Yeah, and it's again, it's amazing to see the different sport that the regular season is versus the playoffs, because the Canadiens swept the Panthers in the regular season, and then you look at how the Panthers didn't even honestly sweat through the playoffs at any point. I mean, it went to 7.
But the Leafs took them 7, and then that was
they took them to 7. But you look at the wins that the Panthers had in that series. It was no competition, and just motoring through mowing down Edmonton, McDavid and Draisaitl like they're nobodies was just very impressive.
So Mark Bergevin used to say, there's players that get you to the playoffs and players that get you through the playoffs, and the Panthers have a lot of players who get you through the playoffs. That's why they win back-to-back Stanley Cups.
So we'll see how the Canadiens can try to replicate that in the coming weeks. Hey, listen, we got the golf tournament coming up, but before that, we got the rookie tournament, or the rookie showdown, as they're calling it, for the 4 Canadian teams. In the meantime, enjoy your long weekend.
All right, you too. Looking forward to it.
Take advantage, because it's going to be a grind of a season coming up.
It will be. I'm looking forward to it, though.
Stu, thank you very much. That was Stu Cowan. I'm Matt Ohayon, and to all you out there, enjoy your long weekends. We'll catch you next time.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, driven to be different. LaBita.tb, embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination.